Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a real medical mystery, one that's got researchers all over the world honestly pretty spooked. We are looking at a baffling shift in global health demographics, a trend that is literally forcing the medical community to completely rewrite everything we thought we knew about who gets sick and when. So let's just get right to it. Is cancer becoming a young person's disease? For as long as we can remember, we've basically treated youth like this magical force field, right? You're in your 20s, your 30s, maybe your 40s, you're building a career, starting a family, going to concerts, playing weekend sports. Cancer, it's not even on your radar. But today, looking at the data, we have to ask ourselves this genuinely terrifying question. I want you to take a second and really let this quote sink in. This is coming straight from recent studies by the National Cancer Institute and Yale Medicine. Colorectal cancer is becoming the leading cause of cancer deaths among young adults in the United States. Think about that. This isn't just some minor statistical glitch. We're talking about a disease that used to be almost entirely associated with the elderly, and now it's aggressively targeting people in the absolute prime of their lives. Section 1. The early onset cancer epidemic. To really get why this matters, we have to look past the data and look at the people. You probably remember when this first really hit the public consciousness back in 2020, with the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman. He was just 43. On screen, the guy was literally the epitome of strength in the Black Panther films. He was the absolute last person anyone expected to die from colorectal cancer. And then you hear stories like Dr. Ryan O'Grady's. He was a totally healthy 43-year-old math professor. He's on a trip to Disney World with his wife and his two little girls when he starts having these severe gastrointestinal issues. And like almost any young, healthy person would, he just brushed it off as a bug. Months later, an ER visit and a rush colonoscopy revealed a devastating diagnosis just 2 days after Christmas. Okay, 67. Why is that number important? Well, researchers at MD Anderson found that back in 2009, the average age of a colorectal cancer diagnosis in the US was 72. Today, that average has rapidly dropped down to 67. And even crazier, nearly 10% of all new colorectal cancer cases globally are now hitting people under the age of 50. Section 2. What the data reveals. So, what are the actual numbers telling us? Well, it's a bit of a paradox, actually. See, overall cancer mortality for people under 50 is dropping, which is amazing. Thanks to incredible medical advancements, fewer young people are dying from lung and breast cancers compared to the 1990s. But, and this is a massive but that a recent JAMA study highlighted, colorectal cancer deaths in that exact same under 50 group, they've been creeping up by 1.1% every single year since 2005. Just take a look at where things are heading. The 2026 projections from the AIR UNIS study are frankly wild. You can see this huge divergence. While lung and breast cancer mortality continues to drop, the trend for early onset colorectal mortality is going the exact opposite direction. For guys in the UK, we're staring down an expected spike of 26.9% by 2026. And we're seeing similar, really concerning leaps in the US, Latin America, and for women in Australia too. Section 3. Investigating the root causes. So, the million-dollar question, why is this happening? Well, one of the biggest theories researchers are chasing down is this thing called the birth cohort effect. Basically, scientists think that starting with a generation born around the 1950s, a huge pileup of modern lifestyle and environmental changes fundamentally shifted our biology. It's almost like this brand new biological window got pried open, completely speeding up the timeline for when cancer can take root in our bodies. Another massive suspect in this shifting biology, your microbiome. That's the vast, complex ecosystem of bacteria living right now inside your gut. Scientists are going all in on figuring out how disruptions to these bacteria might be pulling the trigger on these early onset tumors. In fact, a recent study isolated a specific DNA damaging toxin that gets produced by certain strains of E. coli bacteria. They think this might be a key driver in sparking those early precancerous growths. The reality is, there's no single smoking gun here. It's more like a modern cocktail of environmental suspects. We're talking about the global rise in obesity, the fact that we're all sitting way more than we used to, heavy alcohol consumption, highly processed diets with barely any fiber, and yeah, even the buildup of microplastics inside younger bodies. All of these factors are just universally present in our modern lives, creating this absolute perfect storm. Section 4. Accelerated biological aging. Now, this brings us to some genuinely mind-blowing research from an international group called the Prospect Team. They analyzed blood samples from over 164,000 people across the UK and the US. What they found was a stark, measurable difference between chronological age, just the number of candles on your birthday cake, and your biological age, which is the actual wear and tear happening inside your body on a cellular level. And the scary truth? Younger generations are biologically aging way faster than their parents or grandparents did. And that accelerated aging? It has some really dire consequences. When your cells are constantly dealing with chronic inflammation and your immune system is getting worn down by all these environmental stressors, your biological age starts to outpace your chronological age. The prospect data actually prove this. People whose bodies appear biologically older have a significantly higher risk of developing gastrointestinal, lung, and uterine cancers way before they even hit 55. Section 5. Spotting the warning signs. All right, let's step out of the lab for a second and talk about your day to day life because there are critical red flag symptoms you absolutely need to know. We're talking rectal bleeding, dark or unusually thin ribbon like stools, persistent diarrhea or constipation that just won't quit, abdominal pain, and unexplained chronic fatigue or iron deficiency anemia. The real tragedy is that younger people notoriously brush these off. They think the bleeding is just hemorrhoids. Young women might just assume the anemia is from heavy periods, or they just blame the fatigue on being super stressed out at work. As doctors point out all the time, millennials and Gen Z are just too busy living their lives to realize their body is flashing a giant red warning light. And look, when a diagnosis gets delayed because someone was just too busy, the toll is absolutely devastating. Elena Gaidrija, an oncology social worker at Yale Medicine, put it perfectly. She said, "Cancer is almost like an intruder in your house. Because beyond the very real threat to their life, these young adults are suddenly slammed with derailed careers, massive financial anxiety, the potential stigma of needing a colostomy bag, and the terrifying frantic rush to freeze their sperm or eggs just to preserve their fertility. And all of this is happening in their 20s or 30s. Section 6. Taking action for your health. Okay, but here is the good news. You are not powerless here. So let's talk about what you can actually do, starting with this magic number right here, 45. Lock this number in your brain. Preventative task forces have officially dropped the gold standard age for routine colorectal cancer screenings down a full 5 years, from 50 down to 45. If you are 45, it's time for your screening. And honestly, if you have a family history or if you're African American, since they face a higher risk profile, your doctor might even tell you to start at 40. If you're experiencing any of those red flags we talked about, here is your exact playbook. Step 1, do not assume it will just pass. Step 2, go to your doctor and explicitly request a physical rectal exam. Don't be shy about it. Step 3, advocate for a colonoscopy. I know a lot of young people are totally freaked out by the prep for a colonoscopy, but here's the deal. You're under conscious sedation and it doesn't just diagnose cancer, a colonoscopy actively prevents it. The doctor can literally snip out those precancerous polyps before they ever have a chance to turn into tumors. It's a lifesaver, period. And on a day to day basis, you have so much power to protect your colon. It's the stuff we all know we should be doing, right? Ditch the cigarettes and the e cigs. Keep the drinking to a minimum. Get up and move your body. And please vastly increase your fiber intake. Aim for 25 grams of daily fiber. Stuff like fruits, beans, whole grains, just to keep your digestive tract moving. Also, really quick note, if you or someone you love does get diagnosed, immediately push for genetic testing. Conditions like Lynch syndrome are responsible for a subset of these cancers, and those specific tumors respond incredibly well to targeted immunotherapy treatments. Which brings us to the end of our explainer and to one really vital question. The data is clear. Our biology is shifting. Being young doesn't make you invincible anymore. So I want to leave you with this. Are you actually listening to what your body is trying to tell you? Stop ignoring those persistent symptoms. Start advocating fiercely for your own health. And please, share this with the people you care about. Knowledge and taking action are the best defenses we've got. Thanks so much for joining me and stay healthy out there.